Hello, everyone. I want to call the Hopkinton Town Council remote meeting of June 1st, 2020 to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America,
States of America,
and to the republic
and to the
for which
republic
it
for which
stands,
it stands,
one nation,
one
under
nation,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
with liberty
justice for all.
justice for all.
Okay. First up, consent agenda. Approved Town Council remote meeting minutes of May 4th, 2020, May 5th, 2020 Financial Town Assembly remote meeting minutes, Special Town Council remote meeting minutes of May 13th, 2020, Town Council remote meeting minutes of May 18th, 2020, abatement resulting from 2019 totaled motor vehicles submitted by the tax assessor, ratify and approve the 6th local declaration of emergency from June 1st, 2020 until July 5th, 2020.
This is
I'd
Sylvia.
like to pull May 13th,
I agree. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And also the Financial Town Assembly meeting minutes did not make your packet.
Okay. All right, so
so we can make a motion to approve Town Council remote meeting minutes of May 4th and the Town Council remote meeting minutes of May 18th and approve the abatement submitted by the tax assessor, and we can ratify and approve the 6th local declaration of emergency from June 1st through July 5th, 2020.
Second.
okay, motion made in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, Barbara, you had something on the 13th?
Yes, 13th, page 6.
Yes.
There was a discussion by Councilor Thompson about the Charleston receiving 13,000 in fiscal years 13, 14, 15, and 8 and 15, 5, and then in fiscal year 2020, 18,000. She made a very good comment after that, which I don't see in here, that those monies are for 5 counselors, not per each. And I thought that was a valid statement, and I'd like to see that in the meeting minutes.
Okay,
Agreed.
okay,
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question?
sure.
I wasn't asking for 5,000 per person.
No, I know you weren't. I'm quite aware of that, Sharon. That's fine. Okay. It's just that Sylvia made a comment that I thought was extremely valuable, and it just clarified the discussion, because someone who doesn't know that it's for 5 counselors instead of 1
So it's the
just
5,000
wouldn't know.
5 counselors. So if you're going to make it like that, I mean, I'd suggest that you add, that was but my 5,000 was for the total of 5 counselors as well.
I have
yeah.
a comment for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sylvia. Sharon, you can only go by the record of what was said. There was absolutely no problem with your 5,000. The only reason I added that, which Barbara noticed was missing, was for the public's sake. I didn't want anyone to think by accident that it was 5,000 per person. We know what you meant, correct, and I just wanted to clarify it for the public because they usually don't know the details. So there's nothing wrong with what you said. It just got added to make sure everybody understood that it was not per person. That's all.
Yeah, correct. Thank you, Sylvia.
All right.
Okay, Sylvia, you had a question on
Yeah,
May
it was
13th?
page 3 at the top, the very top sentence, where it says Mr. Rosso. This is in reference to the rec department discussion about declining revenues and expenses, that sort of thing. And it says at the top, Mr. Rosso noted that in that department, which he meant the rec department, the revenue outweighed the expenses. And there was a comment that I had after that if anybody in the future reads this, they might get the wrong impression. And he was clearly, which I understood, talking about programs, and that revenue does exceed the program expenses. But my comment at the end, and I would ask Lisa to go to the record. So I went to the record and I listened to it, and I'll ask Lisa, you listen to the record and you redo the minutes in that section. But basically it was, and I said, but not when you include the entire, and I meant the rec budget. Does the revenue does not meet the expenses or exceed the expenses of the total department. So what Brian said was correct, but there was this section that I added in. So if Lisa, if you could just look to the record and come up with some language that adds that in. That's all. Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate the clarification.
All right, do we want to approve the?
Okay, you did say it.
So
Oh,
we'll wait till
oh,
Lisa
okay,
comes up with
okay,
new
all right,
minutes.
all right.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay,
Okay,
very good.
all right. Okay, next up is the first public forum. Anyone wishing to be heard tonight, please raise your hand. That looks like it's Mr. Morrow. Joey, can you hear me?
I can. Good evening. This is Joe Moreau from Old
Okay.
Depot Road. I hope everyone is fine. I
Thank
just
you.
want to mention something from the May 18th Town Council meeting. It was under new business and it was point 3. And it talked about existing and potential future procedures to ensure that the town is protected in terms of being reimbursed for legally mandated out-of-pocket expenses. Advanced as a result of applications filed for zoning, planning, and other land use relief. The two that I know of are outstanding in their fees, and it's $6,900. In fact, the amount is over that. So I just have 3 quick questions. Can liens be put on this property to get reimbursed? The other question is, if applied for an example, if someone's putting on a deck and they apply for a building permit and there's an outstanding fee due because of solar or some other project, could that stop the project until the monies are reimbursed? And the last question I have is, it's probably something, I don't know if Frank or Kevin could answer this, is do we have an update from the last meeting? I know there was a discussion about sending out letters to these 2 property owners and the attorneys. But that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Kevin or Lisa want to tackle that one? You guys have an update?
This is Kevin. I can give a little bit of an update. As Joe's first question is actually a good question, and I don't know the answer to it. Whether or not a lien can be put on the property. That's as an abstract principle, I think it would be difficult since we don't have a policy on the books that talks about what the procedure is. I think if we did, we probably could do it, but that's one of the things I'm researching for when I put together my recommendation for the council. As an update, which is question number 3, I followed up with both attorneys last Thursday. They both submitted the claims to their clients, and they're going to get back to me. So I'm hopeful that that'll resolve those 2 outstanding debts that Joe referred to. And Joe, I apologize, I forgot your second question.
Well, my second question was, if there was a building permit applied for, could that process be stopped until the outstanding money is paid to the town?
The answer is probably it could. I know when people come to the town seeking affirmative relief like that, a building permit, if they owe the town money, there's going to be a conversation about that. So that's probably something that's a little bit easier than than the actual lien, which can put a cloud on someone's real estate. So that's probably we can do that. But again, it would be best to write that up into a specific policy for the council to consider.
Okay, thanks, Kevin, for the information. I appreciate it. That clarifies it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for public forum? Okay, thank you. Moving on. First item under old business, number 1, announce and possibly discuss Charahoe budget vote status. Charahoe budget referendum for Hopkinton voters scheduled for June 9th, 2020. I know folks will probably have a lot to say on this particular item. I'm not sure if it's important at this point for me to read the letter that that's in our packets for
I think you
the
should read it.
public.
Yes.
That might kind of, I think, explain some
I think
things.
you should.
All right, so I'm going to read that letter that was drafted with the help of the town manager, Bill McGarry, for me to send to the school committee chair and the other 2 towns and some of our legislative delegations. So I'll read that letter so the folks that might not have a copy can understand what it is we're doing as a municipality. So I addressed it to the school chairperson, Charahoe School Chairperson, Dr. Ryan Callahan. Dr. Ryan Callahan, dear Mr. Callahan, the purpose of this correspondence is to respectfully inform you of the town of Hopkinton's opposition to proposed legislation that would allow the Charahoe School Committee to approve its own budget after a public hearing without voter approval. At its May 18, 2020 meeting, the Hopkinton Town Council unanimously voted to oppose any effort to allow the Charahoe School Committee to approve its own budget without voter approval as required by the Charahoe Act. I have learned that draft legislation that has been prepared to amend section 45-2-3.2 of chapter 45-2 of the Rhode Island General Laws entitled General Powers would in part allow the Charahoe School Committee to adopt its own budget. The town of Hopkinton is insistent on the need for voter approval and has scheduled a referendum solely on the Charahoe budget on June 9, 2020. This referendum will be conducted to approve or reject the Charahoe budget voted on by the Charahoe School Committee in March 2020 for the fiscal year 2021. If the Charahoe school budget is approved by the Hopkinton voters on June 9th, then Hopkinton's member contributions from the school committee's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget will be entered as an education expense in the June 23rd, 2020 referendum on the town's municipal budget. If, however, the Charahoe budget is rejected by the Hopkinton voters on June 9th, then a level-funded Charahoe budget from fiscal year 2019-2020 will be entered as the education expense adjusted pro rata for increases in Hopkinton's verified October 1st, 2019 student enrollment in the June 23rd, 2020 referendum on the town's municipal budget. We reached a consensus that this approach reflects a good faith effort on part of the town of Hopkinton to comply with the spirit and the letter of the Charahoe Act as much as possible, given the interference and impacts we have encountered due to the pandemic that forced the cancellation of the planned April 14th Charahoe budget referendum. We also discussed the latest budget-related information we have from Charlestown and Richmond in terms of their plans to submit the Charahoe budget to their respective voters. Charlestown has mailed to its eligible voters a ballot to be returned by June 1st, 2020, that's today, that addresses Charlestown's municipal side budget for 2021. But the ballot in Charlestown does not include the amount for Charlestown's contribution to the Charahoe fiscal year 2021 budget for the voters to consider. Apparently, there is currently no plan in Charlestown to have its voters weigh in on the proposed Charahoe approved budget by the school committee in March of this year. Richmond, in contrast to Charlestown, intends to hold its financial town meeting on June 1st, again tonight, 2020, with their voters voting for the Richmond fiscal year 2021 budget. It does include consideration of the amount approved in March by the Charahoe School Committee for its fiscal year 2021 proposed budget. Richmond, arguably, is therefore indirectly submitting the Charahoe proposed budget to its voters, but not in a separate vote apart from the proposed new municipal budget. As you may be aware, the annual proposed Charahoe budget must be voted on by the voters from Charahoe's 3 member municipalities, according to the Charahoe Act. If the proposed Charahoe budget is to be adopted under the Charahoe Act, it must gain a majority vote from the combined voting from the 3 towns involved. Given Charlestown's position not to afford its voters the opportunity to vote on the Charahoe proposed 2021 fiscal year budget, it appears that provisions of the Charahoe Act will not be complied with this year due to the pandemic's limitations. Hopkinton cannot control what Charlestown does, and all Hopkinton can do under the circumstances is to make our best effort to comply with the Charahoe Act to the greatest extent possible. We are satisfied that we are accomplishing that goal by proceeding as planned and as described above. We discussed draft legislation that might be prepared by the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns to be submitted to the Rhode Island General Assembly to provide local municipalities and regional school districts with some flexibility and relief to municipal charter and statutory requirements. We all recognize that the General Assembly has not met since the pandemic struck Rhode Island, and some of us express skepticism that any emergency legislation will be enacted anytime soon. For planning purposes, we agreed that we cannot assume relief will be forthcoming from the General Assembly in terms of following through on Hopkinton's current plans to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget. I have attached a copy of the draft legislation and this related explanation summary for your review. In summary, we've reached a consensus that while Hopkinton's current plans to comply with the Charahoe Act and approve a budget for fiscal year 2021 may not address all potential contingencies, our plans do represent a comprehensive and good faith effort on Hopkinton's part to comply with both the spirit and the letter of the Charahoe Act under the limitations created by the current pandemic, and at the same time adopt a budget before July 1st, 2020 that will ensure uninterrupted town functioning as the new fiscal year begins.
Can I comment?
Lastly, 1 second, Scott. Lastly, thank you in advance for the consideration of this matter, and hopefully you and other members of the Charahoe School Committee will schedule a date for a referendum for voters from Charlestown and Richmond to approve or reject the school budget for fiscal year 2021. We had sent it to Brian Daniels, the Executive Director of Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, Charlestown Council President Virginia Lee, Richmond Council President Rich Nassani, Representatives Brian Patrick Kennedy and Justin Price, and Senator Elaine Morgan. That's that. So that at least provides some kind of guidance, I guess, from the council and the town where we're going with these referendums. Scott has a question. You have the floor, Scott.
No, I have just a comment. I want to thank you, Frank, for your leadership on this issue. And I think that I know Councilor Thompson and I, who grew up here, you have a lot of understanding. But you know, when you're a leader, you're supposed to address something. And the Charahoe School Committee, I know I've been criticized for going after the school committee, but they had decided not to have their vote in April. And a lot of things were going along about how to address, you know, public voting and public participation. And we are 2 months later, and I still hold them accountable. Each town has 4 members of the school committee from their respective towns on the Charahoe School Committee. So the school committee members from the 3 towns should be looking up in the interest of their town as well as the Charahoe School District. And I think they should be criticized. I'm concerned about the town of Charlestown because, and let me be specific, Charlestown had a responsibility to put the Charahoe vote before their voters. I know, and I hold the Charahoe School District accountable because normally we have a referendum, and I believe that the school district pays for it, although the towns run the referendum, but the individual towns submit a bill to the school district for it. I think the town clerk can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But the thing is, the town of Charlestown specifically did not schedule a vote, and I am a little disappointed in them for tabling my request to have an outside management study, which they tabled, instead of voting it up or down, which I think you shouldn't duck an issue. If you don't believe in it, vote against it. If you're for it, vote for it. And also that audit that the audit subcommittee was worried about, and the Charleston Council ducked both of those votes. And what they specifically did is they tabled them. And I believe you got to stand up and be counted. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Anyone, who else wants to go? Sylvia?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is read a couple of things. First, and it's obviously a complicated issue. in the Charahoe Act, there's a section, long section in reference to the budget and how it, the school budget. And it states, one section, it states, within 30 days after the school committee adopts its final proposed budget for the ensuing year, a budget approval referendum must be held in each of the member towns on a single day to be determined by the regional school committee. So based upon that language in the Charahoe Act, when I talked to Virginia Lee, the council president in Charlestown tonight, to talk to her about, you know, whether you're going to have a vote and what that means, in my opinion, we talked about it, and she noted this section, and that legal had said we need to hear from the school committee. So they didn't hear from the school committee, and she explained that it took them 2 weeks to set up their vote that they're having today, which is done electronically. Anyway, so that I wanted to read. So because it's supposed to be, quote, a single day, obviously we're doing this because we haven't got a single day from the Charahoe School Committee. So we have a date next Tuesday, and Richmond has their date Monday, the day before. She didn't know at that point whether or not Charlestown would have a vote, but and she's going to take it up in her town, obviously, to decide whether or not they're going to have a vote. At the bottom of the same page, which I've talked about this before, if, however, a budget is not adopted by the regional school committee and approved by the voters before July 1, now we know that the regional school committee adopted a budget, but if it's not approved by the voters before July 1 of each year, then the regional school committee shall operate, and they operate according to the provisions in section 16.223 of the general laws, which spells out what they, you know, obviously they're in this section of the general laws, there are things like they would be allowed to, even though they have to adhere to the previous year's budget, they'd be allowed to expend things for contractual, just like any municipality. So they have to adhere to those general laws, and the member towns shall make payments to the regional school district based upon the amounts appropriated for the support for the schools by the member towns in the preceding fiscal year, which means if you don't have a voter-approved budget by July 1, you have to accept the previous year's school budget, bottom line. So that's in conflict, obviously. And the question I put to Virginia Lee was, if you don't have a vote, obviously we're supposed to all have them on the same day, but if you don't have a vote in town, in your town, then obviously the Charahoe school budget has failed. It has to, because you have to have a combined vote of the 3 towns. So if that doesn't happen, then they got to adhere to the previous year's budget. Now, just for one other thing, in the town charter, it's a complicated issue. We've got a date for the school, we got to budget on that, we got a date for the town. No matter what happens, if the town ends up using the previous year's amount of the school budget, or we use the higher number, no matter what happens, after July 1 in our charter, under section 2313, there's a mechanism called special financial town meetings. So even if the town of Hopkinton has a problem and we end up with the wrong number for the school, or anything goes wrong as financially, on July 1 and thereafter, we can call for a special town financial meeting, which would be the old style, to impose a tax. This is how it reads: a special financial town meeting to impose a tax for the expenditure of money shall be called by the clerk upon resolution of the town council, or whenever 400 qualified electors in the town shall make a request in writing for the calling of a special town financial meeting and direct the same to the clerk. These meetings, special town meetings, will be held without an accompanying referendum, and the moderator shall preside over such meetings pursuant to section 2331. And a majority vote of the qualified electors present at the meeting shall be sufficient to allow any proposed motions to carry a quorum of at least 25 electors. So even if things get complicated and we have wrong numbers and we think our tax rate is wrong after July 1 because of the school issue, after July 1, there is a mechanism in the charter to deal with it. So we're going to be okay. It's just complicated for each of the individual towns and the school committee. And I would like to also, other than that, I just want to say that I appreciate and will continue to appreciate what the school committee did and what the administration and the interim superintendent and the principals and all the departments, when they saw that we could, we were going to look at it, Hopkinton was looking at a 7% increase, which violates the law, the tax levy cap. They stepped up and decreased, they didn't just throw revenue at it, they actually decreased the expenses by, what was it, like $800,000?
Yeah.
So I want to.
No, $1.6 million. They decreased their budget by $1.6 million.
Right, and but
She's
the
talking about
expense,
the
I'm just talking
positions.
about the expense side. They didn't just say, oh, here's $1 million in revenue and now it's a lower number. They actually looked at expenses and they,
Eliminated a lot of positions.
I just want to, again, say thank you to them. Anyway, that's basically it.
And I just, if I can just interject before Barbara and Sharon weigh in, I think what Sylvia is driving at is even if we approve, our voters on June 9th approve the Charahoe budget, I still think that because the Charahoe Act hasn't been followed by the other municipalities, it's a real gray area. I know Kevin could probably weigh in on this too. So, you know, it's to our benefit if we revert to last year's operational budget instead of the current one. But it's just a moving target, and it's hard to say, I guess. But it's nice to know we have a conduit to act on a lower number if we need to. So in the charter. So anyway, I've talked enough.
Yeah. Frank.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to Sylvia's comment is that the budget for Charahoe will be the prior year's budget, but it is still with the additional amount of children
Right.
that was established as October 1st. So the budget will not be the same as the prior year. For us, it will go up by another, I think it's 386,000 or something. But it's still going to be, it's a different amount than last year's budget because we added our additional children as of October 1st.
But I think overall it's still cheaper.
It's close to $400,000 less.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yes, I quite
enrollment's
agree.
always kept aside. We always have to pay for the increase in enrollment from October 1st.
Correct. Correct.
Sharon, you have any comments out there?
Well, it sounds like you're saying, based on a technicality, if Charlestown doesn't do their part and have a separate Charahoe budget vote, that no matter what the other two towns do, technically we could say that that the Charahoe budget needs to go back to the previous year with the modifications that you just discussed. But I also want to say that in the past, Charlestown is the one whose votes outpassed Richmond's and Hopkinton's together. So, you know, whether they vote or not, I would think Hopkinton and Richmond, without Charlestown, would probably do better one way or the other, because Charlestown usually says yes. So I don't know. I have to agree with.
Mostly that's true.
Pardon me?
Mostly so, Sharon, that is true.
Yeah. So I don't know, you know, but we just have to take it one step at a time. And I also want to say thank you to the Charahoe committee that they did. I agree with Sylvia. They did step up and reduce the budget, and they reduced their fund balance, and so they were cooperative. And it's just unfortunate that I guess nobody really thought that this pandemic was going to last this long. And, you know, So we're all sort of caught in the situation. And I definitely agree for Hopkinton to do what we're planning, to have the Terre-Haute budget referendum on June 9th and then the town budget on June 23rd, and just see what happens.
Okay, thank you, Council. Kevin or Lisa, do you have any questions, comments, or are you good?
I don't have any
This is
questions.
Kevin. This is Kevin. I do not have any questions or anything to add either.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
All right, I see a couple hands out in the audience. I know, let's just stick it to the particular item that we were discussing here. I'll unmute, looks like Carolyn and Jeff Light. Is that them? Nope, they disappeared. Oh, no hand up, okay. Hello, Mr. Hawkins?
Yes, hi, how are you today?
Good,
First
good.
of all, I apologize. I'm not sure if I'm hitting the right buttons or what I'm doing. I'm kind of a little bit, this is new, let's put it that way. My question being, I have a question in regards to a compassion center.
Oh, yeah.
At present, we have no allocations for a compassion center within the town.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what procedure would you like me to go through to
Mr.
go
Hawkins,
from there?
yeah, Mr. Hawkins, just call me after, after today. I've talked to the town planner, and I think he's also talked to the developer. You need to present a plan that'll be to the planning board, and it's a little more complicated. It's not currently allowed, but it's the onerous is on you to create a district use table.
Okay.
Function. And again, I can steer you to the planner, and he knows what to do and say. So, but yeah.
Yeah, Scott Bill Hurst, I mean, this isn't a scheduled agenda item. You certainly could have brought it up under
Hold on one second.
public forum, but usually you're supposed to stick within the agenda
I
item.
know that. I had to tell you.
Correct.
All right, Carolyn, hold on one second.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Carolyn.
Carolyn Light,
Hello,
43
Carolyn.
Forest Glen Drive. This is regarding the Charahoe school budget. And I know it might be a little far-fetched, but from where I'm sitting with the state of emergency, the Charahoe School District has saved, it's got to be well over $1 million with the current conditions. And I'd like to know if there's been any consideration about how that extra money is going to impact our costs for next year, because certainly any savings, because the facilities are not being used, the transportation is not being used, any of those savings should be reflected in what we would need to provide for them next year. That's the big question I have, and I think it's really important. I'd like to know how we can address that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. So I know
Brian?
listened. Yep, go ahead, Sharon.
I asked that question before as part of the last financial meeting we had. And Kevin McAllister said that, I think he said it, but maybe somebody else said it, but that this Charahoe School Committee can use their savings at their discretion. So the bottom line, though, if whatever they save, they would probably put it in their fund balance. So it doesn't have to come back to the town. That's the bottom line, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
am I
But then
right?
the other issue, yes, but the other issue is that what's in the fund balance we can take out next year. We can ask them to reduce the fund balance and put it back in our budgets. So there is a way to get that back.
Okay.
We'll just have to see how this progresses. But they are aware, I think, that there are savings, and it is substantial. But they also don't know how they have to pay for all the teachers at home and if there was any additional technological things that they needed to do as well. But I think they are aware that there is quite a bit of savings there. But what will happen is it'll go back into the fund balance. And then from there, for the next budget, we would use that fund balance to offset the budget. So we would get it
Frank,
back, but we'd still have to do our normal due diligence and fight for that. It certainly wouldn't come necessarily easily, but it would be there for us to get back.
Okay, thanks, Barbara.
Frank, this is Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin, hi.
Hi, again, this is Kevin McAllister. Sharon was not sure if I had made that statement she quoted. I just want to say that I did not make that statement. That question has never been asked of me. I'm not saying I'm not saying or implying I necessarily disagree with it or agree with it. I think what I would have said if I'd been asked that question is that really would have to come up during the budget process for next year, which is basically consistent. It's a lot more general than what Councilwoman Capalbo said, but it's consistent with that. That's how I probably would have answered that if I had been asked, but I just didn't want the record to seem that I had made that statement because I was just never asked that question.
Okay, fair enough. That's it. Okay, number 2 is similar to obviously number 1 with the referendums. Announce and possibly discuss Hopkinton budget vote status. Hopkinton budget referendum scheduled for June 23rd. Lisa, I guess any updates from your office on that item?
Well, we do have the confirmation from the Rhode Island Board of Elections that we will be getting the equipment for that for both days, for the 9th and for the 23rd. We will be able to keep the voting booths, the privacy booths that will be used tomorrow through the duration, and we'll be able to keep those up and in the meeting room. So there will be a savings of time and effort from Public Works helping me out setting up the meeting. There will be some back and forth where the movers will have to pick up the equipment on Wednesday after this next presidential preference primary event, and then bring back some equipment back ahead of the vote on Tuesday the 9th. I am still looking for people to work that day. I'm going to be requesting the people that are working tomorrow to see if they would be interested in working the following Tuesday or maybe even the 23rd. But if there are people interested out in the public that would like training, we would be happy to help them get trained and have them work that day. It is a paid position, so we are also making sure that we are socially distancing everyone. There's going to be markers and traffic cones outside leading up to the building, 6 feet apart. Once you're in the building, there are placards on the floor marking the 6-foot distance. When you enter the meeting room, there are 2 tables that will have 2 sets of supervisors that will check you in. They will have protection on themselves with gloves and masks. There's a sneeze guard that is up on the table. And then there are extra voting privacy booths in the meeting room so that there's enough space marked out between them so that people are safe and can feel comfortable coming in. The polling place itself will be wiped down once an hour. Every surface is going to be wiped down by staff, and we should be able to have a good, safe voting event on those 2 days, 3 days total.
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
I must say, Lisa, in my life, we've never had 3 elections week to week to week. So,
Nope.
Lisa, please let the individual counselors know if there's something that comes up that you need on these dates. Give us a call, let us know. Somebody needs a ride, whatever, okay?
I will. Thank you.
Hey, Lisa, I just had a quick question to Frank.
Yeah.
Are there any qualifications for working? Do you have to be a registered Hopkinton voter, or does it have to be a certain age?
Well, Ideally, it should be an 18-year-old person, but I think, if somebody who's responsible enough would be able to train them. Young people today are more technologically advanced and comfortable with technology than some of the rest of us. It's a long day, but it's not entirely unpleasant. It's a very interesting event, and it's good to see your voters come out, and we look forward to doing it every year, and we hope it's successful every year. So anybody who's interested, they could give a shout out to me at the office, and I'll be able to answer any questions that they might have. Training would be provided. They've been doing Zoom training for all the supervisors, and it's pretty comprehensive. So again, if anybody is interested, we'd be happy to speak with them, and just give me a call at the office.
Okay, yes, Sylvia has a question.
I know this is a damper and a Debbie Downer, as they call it, some. When someone comes forward and you get some volunteers in and they want to help and be poll workers, and they get paid.
Yeah.
How does that work with the charter? Because if someone's on a board or a commission, you can't be an employee of the town. You can't, if you're an officer of the town, you can't be, quote, an employee of the town. If you're on a board or commission or an elected, appointed position, we can't hire, somebody needed roof work, and we knew, I guess what I'm saying is you can't have boards and commission people be employees of the town. How does it work with this? I wondered how that works.
Well, I get what you're saying. That's what the charter requires. Now, I don't know if it makes a difference if they're, I'm not quite certain what if Brian or Chris in the finance office would be able to assist with that, but I think that they're paid a stipend, so that's pretty much what it is. They're paid for their service for the day, so.
And maybe it's okay. Yeah.
Well,
Maybe,
but also, Lisa, what if?
That's a good point.
What if they volunteer and don't get paid?
Well, they could volunteer, and that would be a different situation.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you that I will have been a poll worker before I got elected.
Yeah.
And I also was on the Affordable Housing Partnership Committee, unpaid. So
Right.
That was fine.
That was, and I think we have had land trust member serve in that capacity also. Maybe it's an issue, but I haven't encountered it yet. So maybe you bring something up that's a potential issue.
Okay. All right, that's it. And on number 2, I guess, moving along, number 3, discuss and set a date for a special town council meeting to adopt routine financial resolutions and set the tax levy for fiscal year 2021 town budget. Now, we're having our referendum on the 23rd. I'm thinking, obviously any day after that, maybe 29th. I don't know.
I prefer Monday because obviously that's my day off from work. Monday is the.
All right, so the 29th is a Monday.
I believe when I reached out and I came up with the tentative calendar of dates for when we were trying to schedule the budget referendum for Terre Haute and for Hopkinton, I had sent an email out to everyone, and I believe Brian, the finance director, Brian Rosso, had mentioned that he was concerned about going too far towards the end of the month. He suggested Thursday, the 25th. I don't know if that's, it's up to the town council to set. But.
Right, this is Barbara. I'm okay with that date. How do you stand, Scott?
The Republican Town Committee meets on the 4th Thursday of the month, although we haven't met lately. And the problem is that the political parties endorse candidates for the election in June, and late during June is the normal dates for the political parties endorse candidates. So I might not be able to make it because I'm trying to get people to run as Republicans, and we do have to officially do an endorsement even for the town committee. So that was probably a problem for me, but
The 25th?
yeah, I would imagine so. But And usually Wednesday night would be better because I usually don't work Wednesday nights.
Mhm.
But whatever, I mean, as long as you have a quorum, and usually that's a routine meeting anyways, so do it as convenient for the majority of the council, but usually Wednesday is a better night for me,
Mhm.
especially because of the fourth Thursday being the Republican Town Committee normal meeting night.
Well, again,
I certainly don't have any
can't-
problem
we
with
can't
Wednesday.
concern ourselves with the Republican Town Committee. This is a pretty serious issue.
No,
Anyway,
but I mean, I have
no
no
offense,
problem
Scott,
with
but-
Wednesday.
hold on
I
one
do.
second. Hold on one second, folks. Bill whispered in my ear that Brian, as well as Liz Monty, the tax assessor, need time to gather their information to set the levy. So Wednesday's probably too soon. I know it's only a day, but Brian, again, finance director, suggested Thursday, the 25th. And I think we probably have to go with that based on that.
Okay. I like to say something. That
Yeah, go ahead,
Sharon,
Scott.
you got something to say?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'm the treasurer of Kingston Congregational Church, and we meet on that Wednesday, the fourth Wednesday.
But it's going to be Thursday.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know
okay.
it's-
Yeah,
We're going to do the
Thursday.
25th.
Thursday, the
then.
25th.
Okay, can I say something?
Okay.
The bottom line is that a political party or the town committee of a political party which endorses candidates, which is a legal act of a political town committee, there's 2 meetings during the 2-year term that's significant. The organization meeting of the town committee, which is required by law in January of odd years, and the filing in June of
What's this got to do with?
Scott,
the-
has it
equal.
got to do with the
Yeah,
town
it
council?
is. It's why
Yeah.
this 25th is not acceptable to me.
Oh, I know, but just say you have another
We
engagement.
understand that.
We don't care about the town committee. That's,
I'm just talking about the legal facts.
oh, that doesn't matter though. If you have an engagement, you can't make it, that's fine. But again,
May I ask you a question? This
this
is
is a
Lisa.
meeting of the town council, not the town committee.
Yeah, Lisa's got something to
Go
add
ahead,
on
Lisa.
this.
Could I ask Counselor Hurst when his meeting time is?
It's usually 7 o'clock.
But you said you haven't been meeting lately.
No, but by law,
That's not a problem. Then do it a different day.
okay, I'm not even going to argue. Maybe we can work around it.
Well,
Even-
I was
Even so,
suggesting
can
maybe
we meet at
hold the meeting
6:30?
6:30.
Correct. I think meeting at 6:30 would be fine.
Sure. That's fine.
Fine.
So
Does
we'll
that
meet
help-
at 6:30 Thursday, the 25th.
Right, does that help you, Scott?
Thank you.
You have your meeting after. Yeah.
And maybe I can get a meeting before then, but we have legal deadlines that I don't set, by the way. Thank you.
All right, so, well, 6:30 on the 25th for the tax levy meeting.
Good idea. Yeah.
Thank you.
Got it.
Okay.
Well, hopefully Scott
Okay.
can
Thank you.
get to his meeting on that night. Okay. All right, thank you all. Number 4, under old business, discuss and consider resumption continuation of the public hearing on a request for an amendment to the Hopkinton Comprehensive Plan, future land use map, amendment to the Hopkinton zoning ordinance file, Centrica Business Solutions, 1484 Candlewood Road, Suite T through W, Hanover, Maryland, 21076, and Karen and James W. Sherenzia Jr. of 201 Chase Hill Road, Ashaway, Rhode Island, 02804. Property located at Chase Hill Road as Plat 2, Lot 32, in the RFR 80 zone, continued from December 9th, 19 to January 13th, 2020. Meeting canceled and continued to February 18th, 2020. Meeting canceled and rescheduled to March 16th, 2020. The March 16th, 2020 meeting was canceled due to the declaration state of emergency regarding COVID-19. On April 6, 2020, the resumption continuation of the public hearing was scheduled for June 15th, 2020, provided the hearing could be held in person. Due to limitations on capacity and distance requirements and the discussion by the town council on April 6th, 2020, regarding a possible resumption of the public hearing on June 15th, 2020, resuming the public hearing on that date is no longer feasible and a new date should be scheduled. All right, so Lisa, I guess what can we do here?
Well, you have, or you already have, on July 6th, the another Centrica matter
Okay.
scheduled for hearing. It's the beginning of a new hearing process. I don't believe you have anything scheduled yet for your second meeting of the month, which is July 20th.
Okay.
And there's no way for me to predict how many people are going to be able to be in a meeting room for an in-person hearing. So I'm not quite certain how to help out with that. We may have to go to a different sort of a platform type of thing to accomplish and accommodate hearing witnesses, presentations, abutters.
Hey, Kevin, you want to weigh in on what your thoughts are on this?
Yeah, again, this is, there's a lot of uncertainty because none of us know what the future is going to bring relative to not only the COVID-19 situation, but what restrictions the state will have in place. I think when the council discussed this particular hearing at the April 6th council meeting, it was pretty clear that the council, this is the Terenzia, the Chase Road solar thing. It's almost, the public hearing's almost completed on this, and all the other sessions of the public hearing have all been in person, and they occurred all before the COVID-19 restrictions came into place. And quite understandably, the council on April 6th talked about, well, let's hope when we finish this hearing for the last session, because it's probably going to only take one more session to finish the public hearing. Let's try to time it so that it'll coincide with the resumption of live meetings. Well, I think now on June 1st, it's pretty clear to me that we have a lot of uncertainty going forward for the next couple of months, 3 or 4 months anyway. I don't think we should wait. I think we're going to have to adapt to this. I think as long as we can have remote meetings, we have to kind of, when we can, do as much work as we can without waiting for some uncertain time in the future when more than 15 people can meet together in a room. So it'd be my recommendation that we just set the next available date to finish this one in July, one of those dates in July, because another problem is, although it will be okay legally, I think the council that's in place during the beginning of the hearing should be the one who votes on it at the end of the hearing. And we're looking at a new council coming in November. We can't just keep putting this off. I don't think, but again, that's a decision that the council has to make. I don't have a vote, but I can recommend that we just finish this. Let's just schedule a date, regardless of whether it can be live or remote.
Why don't we do this? I don't want to do two.
It's got to be August.
Oh, I was going to say 7/20.
Early August or
I was
something.
going to say 7/20. I don't want to have
No,
this.
I think August. And the other question is, have they paid their $4,104.30? And if they haven't, I think we should table the discussion until they pay it.
Well, again,
Well,
Under the law, you can't.
we have to just show good faith here. Let's
Well,
just
they need
schedule
to
it.
show good faith too. We have expenses
Yeah,
too.
We're not a collection
And if
agency.
if they owe us $4,000, they ought to pay it.
We'll get it, don't
We'll get
worry.
it.
I'm worried.
I'm okay with July 20th.
They've owed it since March, and I don't see them running to pay it. We've sent them more than one
I'm
letter.
okay.
Let's stick
I'm
with
okay
the
with
agenda
July
item here.
20th.
What's that, Barbara?
Frank, Barbara, I'm okay with July 20th. I'm
not.
also okay with August.
I think it should be August.
Then why don't we do the first meeting in August?
Scott and Sharon, Scott and Sylvia, you go with that?
And the issue, and the place? Where will we have it?
Will it be virtual?
Shall it be
It'll
the
be-
Hope Valley or Ashaway School? And it would be complicated. I mean, if we need electronic equipment, it's here.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just say it's going to be here.
I don't know
For
if it
now.
is. Yeah, I don't. Kevin?
This is Kevin. I wouldn't worry about the venue because if it's remote, it doesn't matter. And I think we should assume it might well be remote. So
Yeah.
I think you should just go with the town hall for now.
All right, so it looks like folks want to do, I could do 7:20, but it looks like folks want to do the first meeting in August, which is 8:03.
I'm flexible on that, I think,
I am too.
I'm flexible.
I am too.
And because I try to, I like people working with me and I work with them, so I don't have a preference. The only thing is, I think that a lot of people in town, including myself, want this to come to a head and we just make a decision on this because it's been out there for a long time.
Okay, so let's go with August 3rd. Now, there's a phone number I do not recognize that's got a hand up. Maybe it's, I don't know if it's Attorney Surdit. Stephen, are you out there?
Are you talking to me? This is Chip Hale, Clifford
Oh,
Hale.
no. Okay, no, we're just scheduling something, Chip. Hold on.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right, so we're going to do August 3rd, I guess, for the Centrica. 7 p.m., yeah. That'll be August 3rd, yeah. That's, like Kevin mentioned, I think it's just one more meeting. And that's it, hopefully. Because I think it's just because the interconnection expert, right? I think that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so we got one item under new business. Discuss. and
Did Chip Heil, Frank, did Chip Heil want to make a comment about number 4?
Well, no, it's not, it's just scheduling, Barbara. It's not a, yeah.
Oh, okay, just checking.
Yeah. Discuss, consider, and possibly vote to award a bid for municipal waste removal services to RPE Waste Services, Wood River Junction, Rhode Island, in the amount of $425 per month from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023.
Can we hand it off the bill?
Well, yeah, go ahead, Bill. Get the mic.
Bill McGarry, Town Manager. On Sunday, May 10th, we placed ads in the Journal and the Wesley Sun for the rebid of municipal waste removal services. The town received 2 bids. The first bid submission was from Waste Connection, Seacomp, Mass, in the amount of $449.09 per month. Second bid was received by RPE Waste Services of Wood River Junction in the amount of $425 per month. And the term is from July 1st of this year through June 30th, 2023. After reviewing the documents with Tim Teft and Brian Rosso, we recommend that the town award the bid to the low bidder, RPE Waste Services, for $425 a month from July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2023.
So moved.
I'd like to make a
Second.
motion.
Second.
That'll do.
Okay, motion made and seconded, I think twice.
Yeah.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Mr. President, I move we adjourn in the memory of Roger Bliss. Mr. Bliss was a
Scott's got
former,
a date tonight. I mean,
Mr. Bliss was a town council candidate back in the 1960s. He was very involved in the community. He was very involved with the Ashway Ambulance Association many decades ago, and he was a very community-spirited citizen.
Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Oh, second, sorry. I'm sitting here dazed.
Yeah. All right, motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for
Good
your
night.
participation.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Thank you.
Good night.
Be
Night.
safe.